This is the third African Day of Standardization in Africa. It's the first time to celebrate it in Kenya. We started this in Cameroon, the second one in Rwanda. The third one is at large in all countries on our continent. But in the last few months, the ones that I participated in, I would like first of all to congratulate Kenya Bureau of Standards. This is looking the best. Congratulations. It is an honor to be part of this. Maybe it's because the ARSO is hosted by the Kenya government through Kenya Bureau of Standards. And we are just here next to Hilton in the International Life House. It is very important to mention this because Kenya is among the first countries developed in quality infrastructure. To mention South Africa, to mention Egypt, Kenya, and Ethiopia. Those are the leading countries in Africa in quality infrastructure. This doesn't just go with standards. It goes directly with the trading capacity, the development capacity, which is directly linked to standardization work. If we are talking about trade, it's about the market. Ladies and gentlemen, the African market is potent due to its potential for growth based on prospect of local processing of natural resources such as agricultural products, as what we have seen in different presentations. The emergence of middle-class economies and a shift in focus on the local market. In Africa, we are projecting to have a continental free trade area by 2017. You heard the managing director, Charles Ongwae, talking about East Africa. When the work started, there was like a dream where countries would accept the certification mark among the 5 states. Now we are moving forward. If we don't move with a good pace, the continental free trade area will make us remain behind. We should move with it. Where one day, being 10 years, being 20 years, we can have an African mark. As we have marks at the level of other continents. It's really very, very important for us. Various studies have shown that strategies that do not address the issue of African population and agriculture are bound to fail. To address the need of the continent for the African population growth is expected to grow, while at the same time, dependence in agriculture is expected to double. According to a report from UNICEF, almost 2 billion babies will be born in Africa in the next 35 years. That is not just babies, it's the market. How are we going to feed those 2 billion in the next 35 years? When you talk about 35 years, you may think that is far, but it's not far. Remember yourself when you were still at high school. And now, remember, look where you are. It's near future, and we should position ourselves because that is the market. A large productivity gap separates farmers in Africa from their counterparts in the rest of the world. You saw the data on the share of the market. The unacceptable reality is that too many African farmers still use methods handed from generation to generation, working their lands or grazing their animals much as their ancestors have done for millennia. Closing that gap would support growth, reduce poverty, and enhance food and nutritional security. Strategies that are expected to increase food production and security should be of great importance to the African governments. If Africa's farmers increase their productivity and substituted these imports with their own produce, this would provide a powerful impetus to reducing poverty, enhancing food and nutrition security, and supporting a more inclusive pattern of growth. Ladies and gentlemen, globally, farmers are putting trust in biotechnology and precision farming. You heard what Charles said. How are we prepared to embrace the technology? It doesn't mean we don't have experts, but we should do more. It doesn't mean we should forget this will take over the market. What we should do is to see how, once this is accepted at the level of the globalization market, we should be in a position to say it's good or bad. We have different estimates. FAO estimates that by 2030, about 75% of the projected growth in crop production in sub-Saharan Africa will come from intensification in the form of yield increase, which will be 62% on high cropping. These are statistics. They say data don't lie, but if you do nothing, they lie. You just say we are growing in books, but if you don't continue to grow, the data will again go down. That's why the data don't lie, because they will go up by projection and go down by reality. We should do more. If they say that, I saw the focus, like on the issue of SMEs, the problems that they face, they are not just current problems. They are problems that have been there. How do I address this problem that next year we cannot be having around 10 problems that for SMEs, but reduce them to few? How do we do that? It's good presentation, yes. Yeah. But if SMEs are saying that we are not doing more to help them change their technology, and next year they say the same thing, and the other year the same thing, it will be just presentations. What do we do? It's really important on these different data that are good and make us happy that we are growing, that we start changing. We can start changing by adopting good standardization and conformity assessment regime that will lead to adoption of new cost-efficient technologies in post-harvest processing, in storage, as what we have seen, in value additions, etc. We should also remember that we are bound to WTO agreement. We don't have a choice. It's TBT issues. Yeah. If we don't follow our agreements, yeah, we are failing to our commitments. And the agreement is telling us, use the standards. And the standards are there. It's not about not having them. They are there. But it's probably because in some cases, you find the standard they have become like books. We all went to school where you read nice mathematical equation, and some of us are the ones just using them in practical. Others we just know integral, derivatives, and etc. How can we go and use these standards which are in the library in CAPS? It's very important. It's not about the cost of a standard. It's about looking at how the standard that you bought at a level of around $10, you will produce more using the technology embedded in the standards. That is the value, it's the market. Yeah. On African continent, we fail, we continue blaming one another, public, private, and so on. Others are continuing looking at what you can do in order to grow. I know that Kenya has done a lot, KEBS has done a lot, and the fact is the examples that we saw on the banana crisps and the other products, those are good examples. Those are showcasing for other manufacturers that we should be using those right examples. Probably we need also education in management and business. In a globalized context, a country, trade, performance, and export, sophistication and diversification are critical indicators of its competitiveness. According to 2013 Africa Competitiveness Report, jointly produced by the African Development Bank and World Bank, the Global Competitiveness Index identifies majority of African countries as among the least competitive in the world and notes that Africa must make headway in many areas in order to set itself on sustainable growth. And the standards can make you compete. It is important to note that the African continent celebrated the 25th Industrialization Day on November 20th, 2015, but Africa's experience with industrialization over the past quarter century has actually been quite disappointing. In 2010, Sub-Saharan Africa average share of manufacturing in the gross domestic product was 10%, remaining unchanged since 1970s. And we still have good data saying we are growing. Why do we have data? It's because we just trade in natural resources. We trade with something that we don't change. But once you trade in natural resources, actually, they don't remain here. We sell them. And slowly, slowly, we will lack even those natural resources. It's to have that mind. We should transform our products. Many African countries still find familiarity with products originating from outside Africa that they do with products coming from fellow African countries. While this could be due to the distortions and disorientation arising from the colonial era, it could also be attributed to lack of information on the manufacturing and the production capability with African countries, as well as low standards of quality. You would prefer to buy a shoe from Italy than buying a safari shoe. I remember in the 70s, 80s, where the safari, the boots were all over in East Africa. But today, if you are like me, Secretary General, or MD of CAPE, I don't want to say PS, to find you in this boot, safari boot, they will ask you, you don't know Italy has a nice shoe. But it's our market. Good example is Ethiopia. You go to Ethiopia, And why now the bigger industry of leather are going to invest in Ethiopia? They maintained well their market. It's really important that we reverse our thinking. When you go to West African countries and you find the way they dress, you would be amazed. The material, the cotton, is from the West African countries. That's the thinking. If you look at TV on the modeling now in the West countries, actually even the modeling, now they are putting on our materials. But I wonder where those materials are being produced. If it's not probably from Asia or elsewhere, not mentioning the countries. To create awareness on the challenges of industrialization in Africa, ARSO has initiated the Made in Africa Expo to be held alongside the celebration of the African Day of Standardization. Why do we create the Made in Africa Expo? Is due to the low development of our market, the focus on SM. Remember, label is very important. You go to buy a radio, you will remember the radio that your father was saying is the best. You go to buy a TV, you still look for other brand that they told you they were the best, not mentioning the watches and so on. We should create our own label and mobilize and publicize on our labels. We are moving forward. We want every year to celebrate the African Day of Standardization with an exhibition on Made in Africa Expo. And we tend to grow from the best, from national to the regional level and to African level. This year there will be an expo in Egypt on, again, Made in Africa Expo, which is scheduled between September and October. And that was the aim, actually, to start preparing our SMEs on Made in Expo. Access also to the services of the Bureau of Standards. That was another objective for this Made in Africa Expo. How can you, during this day, access all the services of Kenya Bureau of Standards? At least get where to register and the process. We will continue negotiating with the Bureau of Standards, actually for industries, to reduce the prices. I saw there is an issue of fees on a new product, to reduce the prices for SMEs participating on this Made in Africa Expo. It pays off for the future. Yeah. It pays off for our industry. It is also known that while governments make policies